Well, last time you played this team, you were 0-2, and you said then that this is a long journey still ahead, and here we are now, 12-2 since then. You know you're going to be at least a 3 seed. If things shape out well, you've got a chance to be a 2 seed, you know, and finish strong here with 2 tough road opponents before you head to Huntsville.
Yeah, and honestly, that's all we're focused on is trying to continue to play well and play our best in Miami at FIU, and they've only lost 2 home conference games, and they're playing, like most teams, they're playing better now this time of year than they were early in the season. And so, and they've got the nation's #1 field goal percentage shooter in around the post, and so that poses a challenge for us. And the perimeter players are shooting the ball from the 3-point line better, and so that's all we're focused on. That's all we really can control is just to try to prepare for FIU.
You mentioned Saturday that obviously that's a game here that you have a missed layup at the buzzer. And one of those games that maybe the girls took a little harder or a little more personal than some other games. You feel like there's going to be, I mean, not that it's motivated much this time of year, but you feel like it's a little extra motivation considering? I
hope we're just motivated to play well, period, regardless of the opponent. And that's what we're really trying to do is focus more on us and less on, now we're preparing for FIU, but we've got to do the things that we do well. And what we didn't do well that game was we didn't make easy shots. And we got a lot of field goal attempts. And it wasn't just that last one. That last one would have erased a lot of mistakes. Or maybe hidden a lot of mistakes, but that wouldn't have corrected them. And so we've worked real hard to try to improve upon a lot of areas, and we're doing better. And we're not where we can be, but we're not where we were.
I know you talk about FIU and you're looking at that right now, but looking ahead to Saturday, that game could be weird in several ways. In that you guys could be playing for a 2 seed if things fall well for you, and do what you need to do Thursday. They could be playing for a 1 seed if they beat Middle on Thursday, and then there's a chance that both of you are already locked in. There feels like that game's going to have a lot at stake for at least one team, maybe both.
Well, yes, there's a lot of ifs in there, and that's why don't worry about that. We're not in control of that right now, right? All we're in control of is preparing for FIU. And playing on their home floor, and they've always been a tough team on their home floor, and that's all we can control. And then and Liberty obviously is one of the best teams in our conference, so that'll be a different challenge in of itself, and we'll get ready for that one on Friday. But right now, we're just focused on FIU.
Coach, you guys have put up 214 threes this season, which is one of the top 4th, I think, in program history. What does that say about the confidence all year that this year's group of girls have had in every shot they take?
I'd be interested to know what the other 3 above us are with those 3 teams, because traditionally we've been able to find good threes. We've been able to play defense and generate transition opportunities and turn people over and get steals. And so I'm not surprised by that. We work on that every day, don't we, Zoe? Every day, everybody's expected to work on those things, and they have certain goals that they're to try to reach each week. And so it's not, I have confidence it doesn't matter whether it's Zoe or whether it's Lex Mead. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's Salma or Kinsey. We have confidence in those young ladies if they've reached their goals for that week. And they've got the right shot. The most important thing is not whether it's a 3 or not a 3, it's whether it's contested or uncontested. And if it's the right time, considering the time and score on the clock. And so we've gotten better and better and better at those things. And those are the things that we're really focused on.
Taking things back a little bit just to this past Saturday, really big win in the final game at home, but still stats-wise, not necessarily where you probably wanted to be at with some of those turnovers and stuff like that. You've seen the shooting percentage across the year continue to go up, which is the trend you want to see. But whenever it comes to defense and turnovers and a little bit of foul trouble and stuff like that, how do you really just balance that as we get towards the end of the season?
Well, the fouling it's just a constant teaching point of working on playing defense without putting your hands on people and making sure you're using your head and your feet and your chest and those things. And so we'll just continue to work on that. I think a considerable number of those turnovers happened in the fourth quarter. We played pretty solid basketball for about 3 quarters. We got a little bit lackadaisical in the 4th quarter, and their pressure ramped up, and we didn't make great decisions. But for the most part, we've done a fairly good job of taking care of the ball. We've had some moments in different games where we've had a lot of turnovers. We have games with 5 and 4 turnovers in the entire game. And so as long as we stay focused on the things that we do and the ball movement that we want, then we'll take care of the ball. It's usually those turnovers come off when we're trying to do things that maybe are outside of things that we've practiced.
I know you still got 2 games. I've got to ask a couple of general questions about next week now. So, first of all, we've seen how well all these teams have played at home this year.
Yeah.
How interesting do you think this tournament's going to be when you get all these teams together now on the neutral floor?
I think it's almost a coin toss each game. And so I don't think it matters significantly if you're 1 or 8. It doesn't matter. Where you are, it just matters about how you're playing in that game, because you've seen games, you've seen scores. Even last weekend, you saw scores that came down to the last shot. You've seen upsets. So I think it just comes down to who's the most locked in, who's the best prepared, who's healthy, who's playing the best together, and then just who doesn't flinch. Who doesn't flinch? Who's going to be the one that's just going to stay the course and be ready to grind out those possessions, those quarters, and those games?
You're either going to play 3 games in 3 days if you were to
Right.
get to the final, or 3 games in 4 days. How much do you think your depth is going to be such a big factor in that? Because we've seen teams 3 games in 3 days, legs start to get tired, regardless of what kind of shape your team is, but when you've got depth like that, it feels like that can kind of alleviate it.
Well, that helps. I mean, that's important, being able to turn to players that you believe in that can come in and make a difference. And so we run out a little bit of energy and steam even 2 games in 3 days, in conference. I mean, everybody does. It's, if you're going to play intensely, if you're going to play relentlessly, then you're going to put a lot of effort into it. And if you're putting a lot of effort into it, you're using a lot of energy. And so that's where that bench will come into play. And that's why that 1 day in between makes a big difference as well. And so regardless of what it is, it'll still come down to just toughness and grit and who's sticking together and who's going to fight through some of those. It's not going to be a smooth climb. It's going to be up and down, and you've got to be able to weather the storms.
You've talked all year about the travel stretches, really. Now this week you go to Miami and then to Lynchburg, and normally you come back to Diddle, but now you have to go to Huntsville. Can you just talk about the mental toll of having to, I guess, bounce back and forth with very few days to prepare?
We'll still come back to Diddle, but we just won't come back and play here. And you're correct. Like the travel is always a challenge in our conference. And it's not. I mean, it's a challenge for every team. It's not like we have to travel and other teams don't. So now we do end on the road, and some teams get to end at home. And so I would prefer to end at home. That would be a little bit better to get a week's of rest in your own bed. But it is what it is. We're in a spot where we get a chance to play 2 teams that beat us at home. We're in a spot where those 2 games matter and can determine somewhat the seeding and the outcome or the placement in the tournament. So we've just got to stick to our routine, stick to trying to get our rest and our rehab when we need that, and making sure we're getting prepared for the next opponent.
Feels like I could name 5, 6 players right now on your roster that seem to be playing their best ball at this time. As a coach, I know ideally that's what you want to see. How good is it to see that you've got, the Josie Gilbans, the Alexis Meads, the Destiny Salaries, these players, the Zofia Talegnis that are playing perhaps the best that they've played.
And that's what you want. You want players to continue to grow and improve, and you want them to be playing with a purpose at the end of the season. And I feel like this team is. I think they have a mission in mind, and to me, it's fairly obvious when I watch them. I think the fans enjoy seeing them play. I wish we had another game in Diddle, but I brag just yesterday when film. I bragged to the girls that number one about how they're playing team defense and how they're locking in together. And it's not always perfect, but if you just keep pursuing and you keep working on fixing whatever problem comes up, and they're playing great team defense. And then I think they're playing pretty good team offense. Like when you have 16 assists a game on average, and then you have a game where you're getting 23, 24 assists, that tells you that the ball is moving freely, and we're really working together. And so when you're doing those two things, you kind of have a collective goal. And you do want individually, you want players to be playing at their best this time of year. And sometimes if they're not playing at their best, it may not be because they don't want to or they're not ready to. Sometimes there's different physical things that are going on. Sometimes there's emotional, mental things that are going on that put some limits there. But the key is just to stay with the course, just to keep fighting, don't give up, be relentless, weather the storms, all those things, because it's not going to be an escalator ride.
Coach, you talk about, I mean, the depth of this team, but it's been a really long season getting down to the wire here. Just any updates, whether it's health-wise or injury-wise, just on the girls as they finish out the rest of the season?
They're all, everybody, even so, everybody's got their little nicks and bangs and things that they're going through. I will say that Alexis will play with the mask on her nose, and I've said it before, even before this incident, pound for pound, she's the toughest kid in the conference. There's no way there's anybody that's 110 pounds and any tougher than that kid is. And so she'll wear the mask the rest of throughout the season, and just to protect that. And but it won't stop her. She looks like she's been in a prize fight. She might have won.
Coach, like Compton said earlier to start this off, first two losses of the season to these teams, gone 12-2 since then. How is this group of girls different from that first week of conference play right now?
They're different, but there's a lot of similarities. That first week, at the end of that first weekend, there was a lot of anger, frustration, disappointment, and that's not a bad thing. And I told them, I'm mad that we lost. I remember in the huddle I said, I don't know why sometimes the ball doesn't go in. But I also know that this is a long season and we're not done. And so we have to rechannel that frustration, that disappointment, that anger, and get that in the right direction. And then credit to the young ladies. They did a good job of coming back in the gym. Those first few practices back weren't pleasant, and we've had ups and downs like every team in every sport across the country. And so that's why it's important about routine. It's important about being able to weather disappointments. And then just to stick together. The last thing you want is to go in different directions. And even when we've had moments in games where you see that play turn into individual play, it's not been our best. But when we stick together, even when things like Louisiana Tech on the road is a good example. We didn't play well. We didn't play very passionately the first half, and in the second half we turned that around and played a lot better. But even then, we had two opportunities to take the lead and we didn't get it done. But they never flinched, and they just kept grinding and kept playing, and that came back around. And so, even though yes, we're in a different place than we were at the beginning of the season, it's still a lot of the same fight, the same toughness, the same grit, the same determination. And so, and sometimes the ball doesn't bounce the right way for you, but you don't lose sight of what you're trying to get done.
Anything else?
Thanks, guys.
I was not